Reinventing Digital Billboards, Environmental Impact and the Path to Net Zero. Moderating these conversations is our Narayan Murthy, or we call him NM. He is the head of Adtech business for ASEAN as well as SA Sales at Moving World. Joining him on stage is an impressive group of industry leaders. First, we have Bala Pomale, the CEO of IPG Media Brands. Next, please welcome Ranganathan Somanathan, a seasoned senior leader in the media and marketing industry. And finally, we are honored to have Abdul Sani. They have been mentioning him earlier, so we are honored to have him here with us, the Group CMO at RHB Banking Group. Let's give a warm welcome to our distinguished panelists.
We also have Danish join us, and he heads Sky Blue Media. Please, Danish. Got added later. No, we can just do the same thing.
By the way, in Puchong, there is a huge billboard that is right in the middle of a temple. In Puchong, yeah. It's a unipole, and it's built right in the middle of a temple. Just thought it was interesting.
The Varadarajasam temple or the other Perumal temple?
I'm not sure which temple.
Awesome. Okay, thank you. The last panel was obviously amazing. Thank you, Mandy and everybody else on the panel. It's a hard act to follow, guys. So we really need to step up, or maybe go completely rogue, or talk something else completely.
Or we can have snacks in the...
Yeah, or we can all go back and have snacks, because obviously we have kind of touched a lot of conversations, and just by calling it DOOH is not going to change the fundamental aspects or the problems you're going to talk about on sustainability, carbon emissions and all of that. I really wanted to, yes, of course, we discussed the topic, and we discussed on conversations and how we will run this panel, but having heard the last panel, I'm like really inkling to change the context and the setting. Probably we'll come from the back and start with this. Okay, let's call the elephant in the room. Digital OOH is much better than the classic OOH. Okay, I said it. Let's start with the conversation. I believe, again, as we discussed, currently I'm a digital guy at heart. I've been in digital space for 15, 20 years now. Some of the impact studies I was reading, CO2 emissions from 30 minutes of Netflix in the same as almost driving for 4 miles. This is actually a study. How many of us watch Netflix in the room every day, at least for a few hours? Okay, you're driving 4 miles, sleeping on your couch. There is another claim that watching YouTube uses over 1,600 watts of electricity, equivalent to the consumption of 15 big TVs, screen TVs actually. So watching YouTube for 2 hours, in fact. So there is a significant amount of carbon we are all contributing as digital natives, as digital users. So in that context, I started with that statement that digital out of home is much better than the classic out of home. Yes, it is. So the opening dialogue or opening conversation I want to hear from all of you, maybe we'll start with Bala and come this way, that firstly, your comments on my statement that out of home, digital out of home is much better than classic out of home, in the long run at least. And secondly, current environmental impact from a very specific digital out of home standpoint, notwithstanding the lot of other stuff which classic out of home goes through, putting up the vinyl, bringing it down, disposing it, and a lot of others which the earlier panel very eruditely talked about. So let's talk. We'll start with that, and then we'll build up the conversation.
So I was under the impression that digital out of home is more sustainable and eco-friendly compared to traditional. But I'm not so sure now, because I think there are different schools of thoughts on it. Of course, when you look at traditional out of home, the use of old school vinyls which are difficult to repurpose, or well, it can be repurposed, but it's difficult to recycle because of the hazardous ink and materials that they use. In fact, I think there are some statistics that say in Europe, they use up something like 6 million square feet of material, which is gone to junk every 2 weeks. So that's a lot of material use that you can't really recycle, right? But on the flip side of it, and of course those vinyls take like 1,000 years to decompose.
Yeah.
So it's a very, very long time. You imagine that over time it's just not sustainable. But having said that, I think on the digital out-of-home side of things, the amount of electricity used, and that is probably because we are still, I guess we've come to a good point, and there will be still lots of opportunities to improve on technology in terms of lighting, in terms of controlling brightness. In fact, there were reports that said that the brightness of the screens, and I think in Malaysia we have some ginormous screens that are coming up every now and then, is hazardous to insects and stuff, which has an impact on environment in the long run, right? So it's really hard to say which exactly is more sustainable, and I think this is where we need those calculators that can help us estimate, what is the way to go. But clearly there is a big opportunity to improve on what we are doing in digital out-of-home, in terms of those things, in terms of the material used to build the structures, even in terms of like operating hours. There may be certain hours that you want to put it on because there's more people passing by those sites, and when traffic is low, then you don't need to. Or smaller formats where it detects people, and if there's nobody there, then it doesn't switch on, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's so many different ways that we can actually do this. So I'm inclined to think that in the long run, digital out-of-home will be the better option.
The last panel could suggest that switch off the billboard because it's a digital billboard. The possibility of switching it off or switching it on only arises because it's digital. Otherwise, you can't.
Yeah.
So, long run, and that is my argument again, right? So, Ranga.
But you can't switch off the lights, and that is, when I lived in Shanghai 15 years ago, there was a time limit. At 10 o'clock, all the lighting
Yes.
on the billboards would be switched off.
No, but
That was a city mandate.
correct. I was coming to that, but the conversation was about, in the long run, 365 days of operations on a classic billboard and a digital billboard, I can bet that digital billboard will be much more effective in consuming lesser energy, in contributing lesser carbon print. That's my belief, whatever I've studied. Over to you, Ranga.
And I'd just like to go back to what Naveen triggered, right? And this also probably because we teenage kids at home, we challenge our thinking. My daughter was asking, when are you coming back? And I said, Friday night. I said, why Friday night? And I said, I'm going for this digital out-of-home sustainability discussion. And then what is it all about? And it's about advertising, how can you be sustainable? And she said, how can you ask people to consume and still make them sustainable? How is advertising sustainable? Right, that's what a teenager is thinking today. And but the point is we all have to live, we have to make a living, we have to survive. If there is no economy, there is no life as well.
Correct.
Right? So how do you do it in a moderate way? It's not as if taking it to 0 or taking it to 100. How do you operate at a level where it is moderate? And there are ways which we can do it. And digital out-of-home is a technological innovation or evolution which has taken us from one level of consumption to another level of consumption. So we've probably not seen the impact of the electrical waste, where it is going. We've not seen the impact of lifespan of those sites which needs to be recycled. But once we figure that out, we are so smart as human beings that we'll figure out a solution for it. We started with that high heat, high intensity light, which now becomes LED. And we have advertisers who don't talk much about sustainability, but they bring it into their own practice by basically saying what color codes that we need to use in our creatives, which takes less power. But when you say, shall we talk about it? You say, no, I don't want to talk about it. I'm not doing it for selling more. I'm just doing it because I think that's the right way to do it. So there are very interesting people. So what we should do as a agency, association, out-of-home association, or the industry body is to basically publish some best practices and say, hey guys, this is the way you can do your job slightly better. It's not about switching on and switching off, or it's not about being too, 0 to 100 in 10 seconds. It is about how do we do those steps, how do we make people aware, how do we communicate it through those, unutilized ad spots. That kind of makes it very valuable for consumers. And that creates an action, that creates a movement, that creates, empathy, and overall a better society.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Sunny, from an advertiser point of view, again, we discussed in the afternoon a lot about how brands are thinking about it and how brands are, believing it. Of course, we have two agency leaders here, we have a media owner here. And in this context, where do you see this whole thing going on? I mean, in your hat of a CMO, do you have the consideration of considering ESG as a line item? Where do you see things, and some of the comments on digital versus out of home classic?
Okay. I think it's an interesting question, right? And I do agree with some of the comments made, right? Sometimes people, profit, and planet, right? They are all intertwined. Yep. And we can't actually isolate one factor so that the other two flourish. It has to be interconnected. But I think there comes a time whereby profit in most circumstances are being prioritized because it's the livelihood, right? It's the basic security of any individual or companies requires. So profit is not really a bad word, all right? It's a starting point because it's through profit you can contribute to a better environment, all right? You can take certain initiatives surrounding that. So from advertisers' perspective, like any other organization, I think we hear earlier on, like SMEs, they are struggling. It's not to say they don't have the heart for it. They can't afford it.
Correct.
All right? So different organization has different pace, different capability, and different, ability in driving this. So where companies have the ability and has the right, financial power to do this, the number one question we ask ourselves is, what can we do to help the whole entire ecosystem to come along? So from RHB perspective, of course, we are in the business of financing. So we do come up with a lot of green financing incentives. And we do also educate SMEs on how to plug and play in the most simplistic way, all right, in terms of getting things done. And I think in getting stats, knowing your baseline and how you move forward is important. Otherwise, how are we going to answer to our shareholders or stakeholders that whatever we do is actually making positive steps to a better, greener world, right? So for companies who have started the journey, they may not be perfect, all right, but at least they start the journey and they have the data in front of them to guide them along. I always like to use this phrase, in the land of a blind, one-eyed Jack is king, all right? So better to start somewhere, hopefully it will lead to something better.
Yeah.
As far as the selection of channels and the type of media that we will go for, at the end of the day, the rule of marketing is back to the basic 101 discipline. What is the objective of this campaign?
Effective and cheaper.
Yes. It's all about, if it's about ESG initiative, then okay, right? Then the conduct that we do has to fulfill that philosophy, all right? But it's all about growing sales and stuff. That will be the priority, right? Which channel is the most effective for us to actually deliver that results?
Of course.
All right? Of course, at the back of our head, is this ESG friendly? If it is, in the land of ceteris paribus where everything is equal, of course we will favor ESG solution, right?
So you're saying what Naveen was saying. So if you do it first, and then I will choose whichever is better, and then I will go for it. But in that sense.
I mean, if everything is equal, right? Pricing is equal, the effectiveness of the location is right, is the same, there's no differentiation. Of course, any advertisers will always favor those that is actually green, all right? But that's not the reality. There's poor Mandy have to pay $50 for her organic vegetarian stuff, right? And we did had the earlier conversation that this whole sustainability subject becoming very elite. It's only for the elite.
Correct.
It's not for everybody. And then when we talk about switching off the billboard, then someone start to ask, who's going to fund for this?
Yeah.
All right? So there's no... So when
Sai already said the advertiser will pay for it. One day I will shut
exactly,
down.
right?
I think
All right, so I think it's almost like a what they call a Russian roulette, and we just spin and say, okay, who's going to pay for it, right? But what I was always looking forward is actually partnerships, co-share, all right?
Correct.
Because from what we have observed, the reason why things are expensive for anything sustainable is because there's not enough scale. All right, how do we educate people to come along? How can we co-share, co-invest? If we all truly believe in this, why not do that? And as more people are aware, more people act on it, I'm sure with skill, costs will start to come down. All right? Then that will be a norm.
as you're
Danish.
thinking about your question. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah,
Danish.
So we'll come back. So I know, Danish, I'm putting you on a spot because you are from both the worlds. You have a digital out-of-home business as well as classic out-of-home, many number of sites as a media owner. Where do you guys see this? How often do you get asked this question? Or how do you see this whole, or is it even a consideration? As I know, I love the statement which Sunny made. It's a very elitist conversation right now. It looks like, at least, sounds like. So how do you guys, what is your opinion on it, and where is it in your scheme of things?
I knew this was going to come to me. So, see, the debate or the thought between digital out-of-home and static out-of-home is never ending. Pros and cons in both cases.
Okay.
When it comes to the advertisers, in my career so far, even when sustainable and ESG, the new words that are coined or are in the market now, I have not come across any advertiser talk about it or ask whether my site is green or no, right?
Okay.
What they ask, my site is being covered with tree. Please cut the branch off. Okay, that's the fact. When it comes to digital out-of-home, there are many pluses. Yes, the energy that is consumed is quite high as compared to a static, but with the technological advancements that are happening now, the LEDs that are being used, the brightness monitoring system that is being used, the remote monitoring system that is being used, as compared to a static, definitely takes the cake, right? When it comes to static, the vinyl, the ink, all of that are adding up to the, the carbon footprint.
Yeah.
So that is definitely a no-go. And nowadays, unlike the olden times where the campaigns were run for the entire year, now every 3 months they want a change in the vinyl.
Yeah.
They want a change in the creative.
Correct.
Which adds on, while digital surpasses that. Digital allows changes to happen, right? The point about the brightness that you mentioned, Bala, I mean, now with the auto sensors in place, most of the screens, and I am saying this for all, I mean, most of the screens have this auto sensor in place, where Malaysia, the kind of weather that we have, the kind of climate that we have, one time it's so dark and the other side it's so sunny and bright. This sensor allows the brightness of the screen to change.
Reduce.
Yeah, whenever there is requirement, it'll go bright. Whenever there is not, it'll go down, right? So that allows us to manage our systems well. Even the maintenance of it, right? I mean, you have to send people to get the vinyl down from the static side. That does not happen in the digital side.
Correct.
So overall, the carbon footprint is manageable because you're not making rounds to the site.
Perfect.
So all in all, I would say definitely, at this point in time, one would say, yes, static is better, digital not that much. but digital is moving, and it is moving pretty fast. And in the long run, definitely digital will take the top position here.
And we are assuming more and more new technologies are going to come.
Definitely, definitely. I mean, I've been hearing about technologies where, you know, we are only talking about solar-powered panels.
Correct.
But there are pilots and there are POCs going on for other energy sources also. There is wind energy, right? I've heard where in some parts of the world, they are looking at harnessing energy through movement, that is vibration. You know, so a lot of things are being in play, being tracked right now, and that is something that is a future of digital, DOOH.
Absolutely. So one of the things which Sani said, and we were having this roundtable conversation before we started that, I really have a bone to pick up on this conversation, because as Asians in general, as a communities, you know, India, Indonesia, Malaysia, Vietnam, most of us have a recycling mentality. We talked about several examples in our households. Bottles are recycled, plastic is recycled, papers are recycled. I mean, as a culture we have, in every part of the society we see, there is something which is getting recycled in that sense. There was a whole lot of Western culture which blew a hole in the earth for 200 years, and now they come back and talk about ESG to us. You know, and most of the companies we're all talking about are American companies, European companies, which were probably responsible for all the holes in the atmosphere, which are trying to get covered up now, and they come and give us, you know, lessons on how you should consume and sustain, and, you know, how the protection of earth is in your hands. Why is it in just my hands? Why is it was not in anybody else's hands? So, yeah, exactly. No, but the today question is, Naveen, as you rightly said, who is going to pay for it in that sense? Because my society as such wants the growth which they already had. They're enjoying the benefits of what they burned through a hole in the planet. Now it's my time to grow, and I am being questioned on why your carbon emissions higher on this. In fact, if you see an aggregate of the history of mankind, our carbon emissions would be much, much lower, because we were a self-sustaining, recycling community as such.
The point around elitist comes there, right?
Exactly
So
my
when
point.
you
I
have
was coming there.
when you have an elite lifestyle, you are burning more, and therefore it becomes an elite problem to solve, because those who are not elite, they are anyway having low carbon footprint to start with. But the folks who are migrating through income stages are the ones who are conscious now to say whether I want to burn or not want to burn.
Yeah.
And as much as it is a emerging, as much as it's a TikTok trend, it is also getting embedded into people's lives. One of the biggest movement amongst the two ends of the society, the demographic society, that is the young adult and the silver, I have a lot of silver, generation is, they want to be minimalist in their life.
Yep.
They do not want to overconsume, not because they're thinking sustainability. They're just happy with not overexerting themselves.
True.
And it comes from there, not because they want to be sustainable. Okay, I don't want to be overexerting myself. I want to enjoy my life. I want to do what I want to do. I don't want to get caught into this capitalist trap. And therefore there is this hashtag demure that is going around, which is supposed to be, you know, how people are living their lives now, right? So the elitist problem is because we become over-consuming. The same thing. I talk about my 17-year-old teenager. She talks to me about sustainability, but forgets to switch off the light when she goes out of her room, right? And my parents, still today, they take shower in a bucket of water because they say it only takes 15 liters of water. And when I have a 5-minute shower with water coming from the rain shower, it is actually taking 25 liters of water for 5 minutes.
Correct.
So we are seeking comfort. And I want to talk one more point about cutting trees. A lot of these global brands have, for whatever reason, taken ownership of their footprint, and therefore their responsibility to be holding themselves accountable. One of the leading mobile phone brands, we were buying billboards for them in Bangalore, and we were buying out of Singapore. And the client called us as an agency and said, you know, I have pre and post pictures of the site. It seems like when a media owner has trimmed off the trees around the billboard, I want to go and plant 5 trees.
Okay.
There is somebody sitting in their organization, ethical team, sitting in their organization, people who do ethical business, who are running through their own practices internally and policing them and say, guys, I've seen these sites in Bangalore where the trees are trimmed before you went in, and before and after there is a tree cut that I can see, because we sent proof of campaign, right? And they had to go and plant. There was no activist, there was no citizenry involved. The Unilever is embracing a similar practice. They have a target that they need to have at least 2, 3, 4%, I don't remember the percentage, of their media investments in better media solutions.
Correct.
Better media solutions typically is a similar language is moving hearts, right?
Yeah.
How is the media owner, is the media partner, is the agency having such practices? When we run pitch submissions, we write those things, and what is my practice? And so those have become self-regulatory for those who have benefited from burning the hole for a long time. And I think we should respect that also, right? That's why I go back to the fact that in Malaysia we have this opportunity to be a little bit more best practice driven, regulatory driven, influence driven, to basically say, hey, these are the best practices, follow it, and then popularize it, because we have access to the Out-of-Home Association of Malaysia, we have access to Advertisers Association, we have MSA, MDA, all of us sitting in this room.
Correct.
We don't need the government to tell us change. We can actually change and collaborate without burning a hole in our pockets. And sustainability is not about
Burning a hole. Yeah.
price. So
Exactly.
this is about a mindset, it's about a practice that we want to embrace. So that's a very long monologue.
No, I know, but that's exactly what I was linking to, as you said, the elite one, right? Which brings me to the topic of corporate responsibility. I mean, responsibility at our organization's level, responsibility at a client. Even agencies have responsibility of going with the right media, right? The DEI initiatives of most of the holdco companies you guys have, the ESG initiatives most of the agencies also have, and the clients as well. Responsibility starts where? I mean, to extend your point, Ranga, that responsibility is not about just burning a hole in your pocket and making sure that I do something good, but rather being more innovative about it. So if, I don't know if the student is still here or not, but yes, there is a lot of innovations which are going out, which probably take care of both the aspects of it. Yes, we believe we are responsible, but we are responsible on our terms. Not because somebody pledged 5% somewhere. That is my point. Your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think, you know, we are probably looking at a lot of things from the lens of the formats itself.
Yeah.
The structure, the lighting, the whatever, right? But you can also do other things, right? Like in some cases where I think in Mexico they built wall gardens on panels that don't have advertising, for example, right? To balance things up. So I think that's a big opportunity as well. We don't necessarily have to attack the issue head on. There are other ways of compensating. And I think more needs to be done in those spaces. We need to be able, and that's again, you know, going back to the calculators or standards in terms of how is this going to be measured, so that there is a consistent, unified measurement, you know, across out-of-home, across other media. Who knows? Maybe, you know, at some point we may not just be looking at GRPs as a output of a plan, right? We may be looking at a ESG score. Yeah, you know, or something. Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, good GRPs. So, you know, it gives a much
green GRPs.
a green GRP. And you know, how amazing is that? Because, you know, then you know, it's really a collective decision. Then, you know, do you want to support that or do you not want to support that? But going back to the reality, right? All of this has to come not at a premium. People want convenience. Consumers don't want to pay more. They want the good stuff. They fully support sustainable efforts. They don't want to pay more. Yep. And at least the masses don't want to pay more. I think the early adopters will, because they're also generally more affluent. And you know, but the masses don't. They want it at fair price, and they will support it.
In fact, they will want a price off in order to push them to adopt to that particular practice.
No, but don't you think it's also about economies of scale? Danish, I mean, you can answer that question.
It is, right? Look, for example, right, if we outlaw vinyls,
Yeah.
what's going to happen? We will probably migrate to e-ink or some other way of doing it at a much better way. And scale will happen overnight. Yeah.
But that's again a point where if you are going to regulate it, then it will happen. If it is left to individual entities, then no, because cost effective, right? You're talking about e-ink or you're talking about recyclable material as in replacement to vinyl, right? If it is left to individual entities, media owners in this case, then definitely, because it'll boil down to that % for each campaign. So if it's going to cost me an X, definitely it is going to go down to the advertiser as a Y.
I strongly believe that the regulators need to play a very much bigger role because the country has an objective, right? They want to meet certain targets, and if that is then cascaded through tax breaks or through rewarding good behavior, etc., then we will get there faster because that's how we're built.
And then again, I want to reiterate that again and again. We have the best tools in the country of having the right associations. The associations can drive policy influence. The associations can self-regulate. The quasi-regulation can happen.
Yeah.
And we can push that through. Then we have a banker here who supports green investment, right? If the entire out-of-home association says we're going to transform and this is going to be the cost, they're going to get capital at a better rate.
Absolutely.
So I think the stars are aligning. We need to figure out how we can move more hearts.
So before I ask your last comments on this topic, and probably we'll end the day quickly, I want to talk about programmatic as a solution. Don't you think programmatic actually adds a little more layer of sustainability inbuilt because you're now giving that same opportunity of that spot divided between 5 advertisers, not just one advertiser in that sense? And again, I'm going back to my original statement of how digital will be more effective in the long term because programmatic will give you an opportunity to make sure that you rotate, you use the right technologies, you use the right point of time in which you want to show the ad and not the rest of the time. So you're saving actually by delivering a campaign more programmatically.
That is more at the brand perspective, but not at the medium perspective because at aggregate level is zero-sum game. You know what I mean? Because it's a fixed time.
Correct.
Of number of ads that you serve, all right? It doesn't matter how many brands. So at aggregate level, it's a zero-sum game. But from a brand perspective, yes, better targeting, use less energy. Yes, you do save some carbon footprint.
Yeah.
But at an aggregate level, I don't
brand level,
think.
it makes more sense. Yeah.
At the
Stanley will be happy.
I mean, I think that is ongoing, right? I mean,
That's
you're
already
building creatives at a smaller size, for example, and that is saving carbon footprint. So I think programmatic in that sense, yeah.
No, programmatic works, right? But the point is what Sunny mentioned. At the brand level, yes, but at the media level, you are going to utilize a spot for multiple advertisers. But that does not mean the other spots are going to be switched off or unutilized. The screens will be on for the entire operation of 17 to 18 hours in a day, right? So it's not that, okay, because of programmatic and data targeting, during peak time you have the push, while off-peak time screens are off. That doesn't work. Screens are on irrespective, right? There will be fillers, there will be media owners' own fillers playing in. So that will be there. In fact, because of programmatic, the share of pie reduces. So from a media owner's perspective, that's a drop in the revenue. While when you go, through the traditional way of buying and selling, you are able to maintain that
But that's a current phenomena. We saw it in the digital, right? When early days of programmatic, I was there, I used to sell Yahoo and a couple of other. The problem was, yes, there were not enough advertisers who were bidding for the same spot. Probably they're getting incremental inventory. But to Sai's point, right, the more and more programmatic advertising will go up, the capacity utilization of all the spots will increase. And in an overarching, in a larger frame of time, you will be benefiting because you're dividing your carbon across not just 2 advertisers anymore, but your capacity utilization, your optimization of your asset will be much higher.
But anyways, you have your 10 slots to be filled up, right?
Correct.
I mean, you're going to utilize the screen time. You are going to utilize the energy. The energy will be used.
Correct.
So all in all, maybe the advertisers, because they are utilizing, multiple advertisers are utilizing each spot, instead of 10 advertisers, you're going to have 50 advertisers.
Correct.
But the screen is going to be on.
Yeah, but your creatives...
So,
go ahead.
I agree with both Anish and Sali. The point is, Billboard is getting on at 6 a.m. It's getting switched off at 11 p.m. or 12 p.m.
Yeah.
So there is no carbon saving because you're not having ads. But programmatic has got a very fundamental advantage, which is it drives what you said is economies of scale, capacity utilization. But the 3 things that it does in economics, over time, these 3 things
Marginal.
create value. One is it matches demand to supply.
Correct.
When better efficiency in matching demand to supply, there is efficiency. When there is efficiency, there is sustainability.
Agree.
Second, those demand supply match. Third is accountability, measurement. If there are, Sai mentioned 1,300 digital screens,
Roughly.
1,300
Yeah,
digital
roughly, give or
screens,
take.
out of home
Yeah.
digital screens. Data will tell over time, are all those 1,300 digital screens effective or not?
Correct.
So some of them will get weaned off because they are not getting the demand, because the data is not there to support them. Some other ones will come which are more effective. Again, when you're more accountable, you're more sustainable.
Correct.
So when you drive effectiveness, efficiency, you're becoming more sustainable. So programmatic will drive sustainable advertising over time because of the economic.
That was my point. Greatly put. I mean, amazing. So last comments, we'll again start with probably Bala. How do you see future of digital out of home from more sustainability point of view, and quick one-line thoughts of all of you?
I think the future is definitely good because I think there are lots of opportunities to weave into community-based formats, right? I mean, we're not just looking at the big digital out-of-home sites. The street furniture, for example, even EV charging stations could double up as advertising points, or street furniture that allows people to get information, various types of information. And these locations also collect data that can then be repurposed into better things, right? So I think definitely it's here to stay and it's here to grow. And as materials improve in the sustainable area, things will only get better.
Awesome. Yeah. Ranga, last thoughts?
I'm an eternal optimist. Best is yet to come.
Absolutely. Sunny?
I guess in my personal opinion, I think digital out of home is definitely a step better than the current traditional ones, simply because it's digital based. Hence, there's a lot of potential technological advancement that is on the horizon that can only help advertisers like us and also media owners to drive a much more better sustainable approach in terms of reaching to our customers.
Amazingly put. Danish, last words.
Yes.
For the most important element of the out-of-home industry.
No, definitely. DOOH is here to stay, and with programmatic, the way it is moving forward, it's a long haul, it's a long game, but it's going to do wonders.
Awesome. On that amazing note, thank you, gentlemen. Thank you so much. And thank you, everyone, for making time on the Friday evening.